Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Steph, and today we are doing a kind of part 2 add-on video to a video I did previously, which was things I hate in books. You guys loved that video. I got such a good response and reaction from you guys, and in that video I said, should I do a second part, things I love in books? And a lot of people said they did, so that's what this is gonna be. I know it's been a while since that video, but sorry, here I am with the things I love in books. This is gonna be everything within a book that makes me love it, or like little moments I love, tropes, characters, things in general. I have a whole long list in my phone of things I love in books. If you agree with me or you disagree, feel free to talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. But let's just get right into talking about the things that I love in books. There's so many things. Obviously, I love books so much. One of the first things I really do love, and I know this is like kind of like controversial opinion, is I love slow burns. But if and only if it is done where there are so many little moments leading up to like the grand them being together. If it's just like showing like their normal day every single day and then all of a sudden they're together, it's like, okay, what was the point of reading that entire slow burn? But if you get to see the little moments that like form the relationship, and it's like one in every chapter, it's the best thing ever. But if it's like you go chapters without even an interaction between the characters, that's the slow burn I don't like. So I'm pretty like picky about the slow burn I do like. It has to be done in the way where there is like a little tease in every single chapter, or else I'm not interested. Another thing I love that I feel like everyone loves, but I'm still gonna say it, is dual point of view. Getting both characters' perspective is so good, especially if it's enemies to lovers. If it's enemies to lovers and you get both characters' perspectives, when one thinks the other one hates them, but you see them falling for each other and the other points of view, but they both think they hate each other. Oh my god, it's literally so good. I think I'm gonna do a whole video on the best dual point of view books. If you tell me that a book is dual point of view, I'm probably gonna read it. Like, that's all it really takes for me. Like, there are so many books that I would kill to see the other perspective of. Most of Mariana Zapata's books, I would literally die to see the other perspective. Another thing I love is jealousy trope, but when it's like not annoying, when it's done really well. Sometimes jealousy scenes are so cringy and so embarrassing, but when it's done well, like when the character's just like looking at them from across the room, or they make a little comment and you can tell they're jealous, but they don't make it a whole big ordeal that turns into like something annoying. Oh my god, I love being in the character's head when they're feeling jealous and they don't know why they feel that way. I love it so much, especially if it's the guy and he's like getting really mad. Like, oftentimes in books, I like want the girl to like make him jealous. Like, I'm like looking forward to it. I'm like, okay, do something. Talk to this guy over here. Okay, yeah, nope, you're not gonna talk to him? Okay, talk to this guy. Then when they don't do it, I'm like, aw. Is that toxic of me? Probably. But I always want them to like kind of like make the guy jealous. In every book I read, I'm like looking forward to it. And if it doesn't happen, I'm like disappointed. Okay, this is like a huge thing I love. Like, if a book has this, I like usually remember the book and love it. And it's when the book has a specific quote that is super unique to that book, that is repeated over and over again throughout the book. Like, I have some examples of this. Like in Love and Other Words, the characters ask each other all the time, what's your favorite word today? Whatever, like based on their day or their mood or whatever, they tell each other what their favorite word is and what it means and why. In All Your Perfects, how he says, what did I miss when you were sleeping? And then she tells him about her dream. I loved that, how every morning he said, what did I miss when you were sleeping? Another thing, like in the After series, I know, don't come for me, but something that I really remembered from that was when she said, I love you too, and he said, don't say too, it just sounds like you're agreeing with me. Those little moments, like those little quotes that are just like super memorable, everyone remembers them. It's not just like a you personal, like, oh, that quote is so meaningful to me. It's like, no, everyone knows. It's like a trademarked thing for that book. As soon as like a book has like a repeated quote or like a really memorable quote, it like sticks with me forever. I love that so much. If you have examples of that, or like books that have something like that, please recommend them to me, or like remind me of the books, because those kind of things are just top tier. Kind of related to that is when books mention like classic literature or like another book within the book and use quotes from those like classic literature, and then it parallels into their story. Books that talk about other books, I love it so much, especially if I've read the books they're talking about and the way they're relating to them and like talking about them. So good. Another thing I love is plot twists that don't lead to breakups. So like a plot twist that maybe it causes like tension and like a fight or something. I don't like when there's like a breakup and they're apart because of a miscommunication, but when there's like a plot twist in a romance, I love it. It like adds another element that you didn't see coming. That's why I love Colleen Hoover so much, because she throws in the craziest plot twist, like in Hopeless. Oh my god, the plot twist in that book. They also have that in Confess, like little plot twist that doesn't break the couple apart, but it's like it adds a whole other element of surprise that you didn't see coming. Oh my god, I love it so much. Another thing is companion novel series. When you're in the beginning of the series and they allude to another couple happening, and then later you get to read about that couple. I love that so much. In the Kings of Rittenhouse series and the Fulton You series by Maya Hughes, they hint at this one couple from the very first book of like Kings of Rittenhouse, and you watch it develop over that 5-book series into nothing. Like, they don't mention it, like nothing really comes from it, and then you get to read the Fulton You series, the 4-book series, and you finally get to the last book and it's the couple that's been mentioned since the fucking start, and you get to read it. I love that so much. It makes the build up so much better, how they like have mentioned it throughout all these books, and you get to see the other characters' perspectives on their relationship, and then you finally get to read it. It's like, it hits different. Similar to that, when you get to like the end of a companion novel series and they mention the previous couples and where they are now, like they get to like reunite and you get to see the couple you read like 4 books ago, you get to see them again and what they're up to. I love that too so much. I love companion novel series so much. Oh my god. Another trope is when the girl like gets injured or hurt, or like the guy thinks she gets hurt and the guy like loses his mind. Like, oh my god. I love that trope so much. Not like damsel in distress vibes where she needs help, but I like the guy's reaction, because it usually is when he's like showing that he actually cares. I get the same feeling from that as I do like from jealousy scenes. I love those so much. Another thing, I feel like this is just a men written by women thing in general because women are writing it, but men in books that defend women to other men or like to other girls, whatever they do, for some reason men in books defending girls and like being feminist, oh my god, I like fall in love with them immediately. As soon as they say one bare minimum comment, I'm like, I'm in love with you. That is so rare in real life. Just when the guy defends the girl, even if it's not the love interest or anything, if he's just like a feminist, it's so unrealistic because like no guys in real life do that shit, but like it feels like it should be the bare minimum. So I end up loving it so much. Another trope I really love is when you're only in the girl's perspective, right? Or you're only in one character's perspective, and the whole time like you watch the development of their relationship through this one character's perspective, and then you get to the end and you realize like the other character had been in love with them the whole time, but obviously you didn't know that because you weren't in their head. Like, there's so many books that I could say that fit this trope, but I kind of don't want to spoil them because it's like a baby spoiler. But when you get to the end and they're like, I've literally been in love with you this entire time. Oh, I love that. Like when it finally comes out and they're like, no, when this happened and this happened, that's when I knew I loved you. And then you're like, oh shit. Oh my god, another thing that's like kind of specific. I know I have like examples of this, but when you're reading a book, I think this happens a lot in Mia Sheridan's books, and I love it so much. It like makes my heart hurt. You'll be in the character's perspective and like randomly a line will be in italics, and the italicized line is like something the character wants to say but doesn't. So like kind of confessing his feelings. Whenever there's an italicized quote, it's always so good. Any italicized words in a book, my eyes go right to it because I know it's about to be them saying something that I wish they would say out loud, or like something that's just gonna hit me in the heart. Another thing I love is when you see more relationships develop in the book than just the main romantic couple. I love seeing friendships and familial relationships grow throughout books. This usually happens more in series, like kind of a found family vibe. The whole Addicted Calloway Sisters series is a found family. You watch, obviously the couples fall in love, but the 6 of them, that turns into the 8 of them, you watch them become like the closest friends ever, and you see each little bond between all the different people and all their little interactions that make them into this group of people that love each other so much. It happens in companion novel series too, but I love seeing friends interact in books and have bonding moments that's not just between the couple. Like sometimes it's between one of the love interest's best friend and the other love interest, and you see them form a relationship that's not romantic, just like a platonic friendship. I love seeing the development of friendships in books on the side of the romance. It like makes me get so much more attached to it, and I like want to be part of their friend group so bad. Every time I read a book that has like a found family, so good. In general, I just love books that make me cry. If a book evokes enough emotion from me that I cry, it's gonna be a good ass book. Crying for a book, like, yes, it hurts, but it is the best pain because it's like, how did I love something this much that it made me cry? It's literally words on paper. When a book has letters, written letters to someone, or they find letters that were written to them. When there's letters in a book, I just know it's gonna hit me in the heart. All Your Perfects has letters like to each other. It's like the most well done thing ever. Beach Read had letters that she found. Anytime they write letters to each other, or like they find letters from someone else, and they read them, I usually end up crying too, but it's usually so good. Like, I love that part when you get to the realization, like you find a letter and you're like, oh, and it kind of ties everything together. I love that moment. I love when books end in like a non-predictable way. Like, usually books will end and then there'll be an epilogue and they get married and have kids, and you're like, okay, that happens in literally every book. I love when books don't end that way. They either leave you thinking, or they just kind of end with the couple being together, that you don't have to see them in the future. You can interpret what happens on your own. I do love epilogues, but I hate how they're all the same. So like, I like endings that don't feel really rushed and forced, and like all of a sudden they're like engaged and having kids. It's like, did that have to happen? Like, couldn't we just like have a nice ending that wasn't just like the classic nuclear family? I love, nothing will beat my love for short chapters. Short chapters in long books. I hate long chapters. Short chapters are the best things ever. It motivates me to read. I feel like I read so much faster. If I see a chapter is like 4 pages, I'm like, oh, it's the best thing ever. Immediately read it, and then I see the next chapter is 4 pages, immediately read it. See the next chapter is 5 pages, then I can just keep reading. But when a book chapter is 50 pages, I'm like, do I really want to sit here and read one chapter for the next hour? I feel like unmotivated to read it when it's super long. I fly through short chapters. I love them so much. Even if the books are the same length, give me short chapters, please. Especially like long chapters, like if they're like take place all on the same day. I'm like, okay, it's too long now. I love banter, witty banter, teasing, arguing, but it's not really arguing. This is why I love Connor and Rose from the Addicted series so much. They're academic rivals, and the way that they banter and are mean to each other, but in a joking, loving way, is so perfect. Like, if anyone else were to say the things they say to each other, they would immediately step in and defend each other, but only they can say it, and it makes it so much better. Like, they just like joke with each other, but they know exactly when to stop. It's not like they're actually fighting or arguing. It's like they know exactly how to handle each other. The way Connor reacts to Rose like arguing with him is so funny. Oh, the banter is just so good. Like, the witty comments they make to each other, and it just never stops. Like, they always know what to say. It really gets me going, and I like can't stop reading. I love the dynamic between them. Please recommend me academic rivals to lovers, please. I love those. If it has banter, any book that has like witty banter, drop it in the comments. Another thing I like is a good, well-developed, memorable setting. When you think of a book and you can immediately get taken back to the setting you pictured in that book, it's so cool. An example of this for me is We Were Liars. I feel like the setting is super unique, that I never forget it. Like, I have a vivid picture of like the entire island because of how it was described. Same with The Summer of Broken Rules. That's the reason I love that book so much, is the setting. The Summer of Broken Rules like takes place on the Cape, I think Martha's Vineyard, and it's so like described and like developed that you feel like you're there. And I love it so much that I picture the entire thing in my head. A trope I love in general is fake dating. It's one of my all-time favorites. I'm doing a video on it soon. But fake dating, the part when you see the lines start to blur, like the sweet spot of the book where you're like, are we fake dating, are we not, is so good. I never want it to end. Like, when both the characters are questioning what's going on, like, are we just using this ploy to like get closer, or do the other person still think we're faking, or are we being real? I love that feeling, and I love seeing it. Or when you can totally tell one of the characters is so into it that it like can't be faking at that point. When one of the characters speaks another language and then they speak it to the character that doesn't understand what they're saying. And this happens in Culty. This happens in the Maid series, like the last book, I think. This happens in the Addicted series, but they kind of both speak it. But when they speak another language and they like are calling the character like a nickname in that language, or they always like say little quotes in their language, but the character doesn't know what they're saying, and it's always usually them like confessing their feelings, but like, I love that shit so much. I always be Google translating whatever they're saying so I know what's going on. I'm like, oh, he just said he loved her, but she doesn't know. And that's how I felt like every time there's like a language like aspect. I love it so much. The next one is like a guilty pleasure thing that I love in books, because I know it's like so, not sexist, but like it just doesn't feel right. But when the girl like gets super dolled up and super ready and like looks super good and shows up, and then the guy's suddenly like taken aback, like notices her. I know that's a horrible trope, but I love it whenever that happens, when the girl like looks really, really good and the guy like has like a visceral reaction to seeing her. It just hits different. I'm sorry. And the last but not least thing I love very much in books is when it has good pacing and it feels realistic. I love books that I feel like could happen to me, knowing that none of it actually ever will happen. But when it doesn't feel too unrealistic, like it still feels attainable, you know, like it happens in a way that you're like, oh, I could totally see this happening in real life. Like the development of this relationship is so realistic. Like, I know that the point of reading is not to be realistic, but sometimes when I'm reading a realistic book, it like makes me think. I'm like, could this happen to me? And it just like, I really enjoy that feeling like it's something that's attainable. Does that make sense? But yeah, that's the last thing I'm gonna talk about in today's video. If you have any more things you love in books, please let me know, drop them in the comments. Or if you wanna watch my video on things I hate in books, I'll definitely link it down below as well. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you wanna follow me on my other social medias, they're all linked down below as always. And I'll see you in my next video very, very soon. Bye.